Hello and welcome to Sri Lanka today. First, the headlines. New homes for low increased residents in Colombo. Tuk-tuk travels now cheap. Tourism industry blooming. Sri Lanka is undergoing rapid transformation. Let's have a look.
It is 6. Kumara is waiting for her husband in front of their new home.
දැන් මෙතනට ඇවිල්ලා අවුරුදු දෙකමාරක් ඉන්නවා. මෙතනට හොඳයි. ළමයි ඉස්කෝලේට ඒවට ළමයි අද්දාන්නත් හොඳයි. දුව මේ කම්පැනි විදියෙන් තමයි වැඩ කරන්නේ. පැයක් විතර යනවා. උදේට බස් එකකින් සැනන් ගන්නේ.
Padmini is happy to be here.
මටත් ආසාවක් තිබුණානේ කරන්ට් එකක් ගන්න ඕනේ, ගෙදර টয়ලට් එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ, බාත්රූම් එකක් තියෙන්න. ඒ වගේ දෙයනේ කියලා මට එකක් හම්බුණා. සෑහෙන දුරට මට දියුණුවක් බව තමයි මට පේන්නේ මිසක් අඩුවක් නැහැ.
Here is so noisy but secure, which is good, especially for the children.
සාමාන්‍ය මේ පරිසර හොඳයි. හොඳින් ඉන්න පුළුවන් දෙවියන්ගේ පිට කිසි කරදරයක් නැතුව, සම්ඩුවේම නැතුව හොඳින් ඉන්න පුළුවන් මෙතන.
Now let's talk about tuk-tuk drivers. A traditional one, a modern one. The difference, the fares.
Three-wheelers, also commonly known as tuk-tuks, are a popular mode of transport and easily found on the streets of Colombo and everywhere else in Sri Lanka. There are around 400,000 tuk-tuks operating in the country. Hiring one is easy, but there is no regulated price mechanism for a hire. Fares are often negotiated on the spot. Now, the introduction of a meter taxi, is also known as budget taxi, is changing this situation.
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් 250 විතර අයරයක් අපි සාමාන්‍ය 150 විතර වගේ තමයි යන්නේ. කෝල් කරලා ගෙන්න ගන්න පුළුවන් තමන් ඉන්න තැනට. ආරක්ෂාව තියෙන පොඩි ළමයෙක් වුණත් ගෑනු කෙනෙක් වුණත් යවන්න පුළුවන් කිසි කරදරයක් නැතුව. ලාභයි.
Presently, there are around 2,000 meter taxis operating in the country, and they are increasing by the day. Although small in number, their presence is making traditional tuk-tuk drivers feel insecure about their future.
අපිට අයස අඩු වෙලා තින්නේ මේ මීටර් ටැක්සි ආපු නිසා. දැන් අපි යම හයර් එක ගියොත් එහෙම නැහැ. අපි දැන් සාමාන්‍ය මෙතනින් ගාන පොරොන්දු දුන්නා නම් ගානට තමයි යන්නේ. අරයාලා එහෙම මීටරේ ඔන් කරාම මීටරේ ගානට ලංකාවේ කොහේ හරි ගමන්නේ ගිහින් එන්න පුළුවන්. දිගෙන් දිගට මේ මීටර් ටැක්සි ඒවා දේවල් ගැන ඉතින් රජයත් එක්කම කතා කරලා මොකක් කරමුද පියවරකට ඇවිල්ලා අපේ රස්සාව දිගටම කරන් එන්න තමයි අපේ බලාපොරොත්තුව තියෙන්නේ.
Being cheaper, meter taxis are becoming more popular among the public. Proper policy and regulation will help other three-wheel operators also to use meters, which will yield good results for them in the long run. A meter for a taxi costs around 10,500 rupees. Whether tuk-tuk drivers union consider having them fixed in their vehicles is something unclear right now. But what is evident is that there are many benefits to gain from it.
Today, tuk-tuk drivers are facing yet another problem. The introduction of air-conditioned taxis at very competitive rates. And some three-wheel drivers unions have taken to the streets to mark their protest. With some 400,000 tuk-tuks in operation and some 2 million people depending on the incomes generated from them, this is a matter of serious concern.
For 30 long years, tourism in Sri Lanka suffered because of the war. Now war is over. Tourists are coming back.
Business is booming. Tourists are now pouring in. Sri Lanka has everything for tourist attraction. A rich culture, pristine environment, balmy weather, and warm hospitality.
We're loving Sri Lanka at the moment. We're loving the weather and the people are friendly. The food is fantastic. So yeah, really having a great time.
Maybe here it's nicer, the trees, the people, and the different people. It's nicer.
In 2010, just 1 year after the war ended, 655,000 tourists visited Sri Lanka. This figure is growing steadily every year.
We are proud to say that Sri Lanka made a world record. That is the highest tourist growth in the world, 2010.
The future looks bright. Many international magazines like the New York Times have identified Sri Lanka as one of the top 31 tourist destinations.
When you look at the tourism industry in Sri Lanka, we have all the resources, attractions. But the very big issue we are facing these days, how we are going to provide the accommodation for the tourist.
Sri Lanka's coastline is dotted with 5-star hotels and resorts. Many have to be built. That will not be enough. People will have to be trained in the hospitality business. That will take some doing, but the government and the people are all set.
That's all for today. Stay with us. Coming up, our multicultural program.
One of the major characters who contributing their knowledge and their experience to the society. Today, Sri Lankan women exploring their knowledge via internet and through print media and other print resources and filming and observing much more resources, and they are uploading their knowledge day by day. Today we have a special guest who representing in Sri Lankan women society, and she has much more experience and practical exercises how the Sri Lankan women contribute and they serving and experience. Anoma Raj Karuna. We have a special guest and she will share with us how Sri Lankan women contributing their resources to the other people.
As a sociologist, what I do is research, but I share my research with groups who are working with women, women's organizations, donor agencies, sometimes with the media. Because as a researcher, what I do is I gather information which will be useful for other people in their policy making, in their decision making. So I make it available to them. But on another level, as a person who documents and share knowledge, I use different mediums to document that and to start small discussions. For example, that you meet a person like courageous woman who has been through a lot, and you document her life and you bring it, and maybe I'm not referring to big screenings or like big conferences, maybe with 5 women in another place where they are not very courageous. You share that knowledge or the life story of that woman with them, which might give them a little bit of hope.
North Muslim of Sri Lanka, one of the worst affected community by the war. Over 80,000 people were forcibly evicted by LTT in 1990 from their homelands. Over 20 years, they have been living in refugee camps with various problems, especially women in this community facing various social issues and other problems. To find out the current scenario, we talked to women activist Anoma Raj.
I think because it's not something only on the surface. It's it's a very deep question about the identity, who they are. They are all Sri Lankans, but they are considered as refugees. Even like children, who are born into Putlam, sometimes they were addressed as refugee dogs. So this is something, really hurtful, very hurtful. So I think what is important is to understand this whole problem from all perspectives. The host community, it's not only Muslim, it's Tamil, Muslim, Sinhalese, and the refugees. So I think the importance is right now to establish a kind of a commission to look into the matter from all points of views, to get everybody's ideas of what is best for everybody.
July, Life After 25 Years of Anoma Raja Karuna is a collection of pictures about civil war in Sri Lanka. Inside this book, a picture was amazing for me. South or north, the loss of a child is the worst loss for a mother. Can you share with me the story of this mother, this woman?
Yeah, actually, Ali, I met her in November 2003. I went to Kirinochi, which is in the north part of Sri Lanka. After the signing of this agreement between the LTT and Sri Lankan government, I went there for this Heroes Day, which is celebrated by the LTT. They dedicate this day to celebrate the lives of people that who died in the war. And in the evening at 6 o'clock, they have a celebration with lighted oil lamps and flowers and garlands and everything, and a speech by the leader of the LTT at these graveyards, like where that they have these graveyards where there is a kind of a stone laid for each person that who sacrificed life. What I decided to do was to go there in the morning, because the celebrations start in the evening. I thought I should visit this graveyard and see what's happening during the daytime. And I was there around 11 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden I saw few people walking into the graveyard. I have seen these celebrations on television previous years, but what happened was, there came this mother whom you were referring to. She came, and because she knew where the stone for her son was laid, she walked and she just dumped the bag she was carrying on the ground, and she started crying. She cried, like I think for 5 minutes, like she was crying loud, saying things in Tamil. Why did you leave? You know, she was just, pounding, like, on the stone, and she was, expressing herself. So I photographed her.
Hello, this is Raju Silwal from Nepal Television. Today we are going to present Anoma Rajkaruna, a successful filmmaker of Sri Lanka. She has already directed over 35 films which have been screened in festivals all over the world. Please meet to Anoma and to know about how is the condition of film producer in Sri Lanka.
So it's very difficult, and there's no commission work. So it's very difficult to survive. But one may survive, as I did during the last 20 years, by producing for outside as well, because I have a few distributors outside, especially in India, who distribute my documentaries. That way I survive, and I hope that others will be able to survive that way as well, if they find a market outside Sri Lanka as well.
Hello and welcome. Tonight we are going to talk about gender bias. What is gender bias? What are the factors contributing to gender bias, and how do we overcome this particular problem of gender bias, which is prevalent in our region? To answer all these questions, we have Ms. Anoma Rajkaruna, who is an expert in gender issues.
You come from the same region. Don't you think that in Bhutan that women are treated differently? Because as we all know, gender is all about social constructions, and especially in our region, there are a lot of social biases, constructions, which discriminate women.
Belong to my country, I mean Afghanistan. Afghanistan have a lot of difficulties, especially women's rights in health sections and education. So how you can help, because you told before that you are working for the women rights in South Asia. How you can help for those women that they are now right in the fighting place?
I think then a person from outside helping somebody, who are not within our reach, I think your own people can help them much better. Your policymakers, the people who are working against extremist groups, that who are, trying to push people, women inside their households, asking women to leave the education, leave their jobs and, go back to households. I think that those activists who are living within your own country can do a better role than somebody from outside.
Hello, this is Saif Rahman from Pakistan News. I am in Sri Lanka at the moment, where I have conducted the interview of famous poet and film writer of Sri Lanka, Anuma Rajakaruna. Let's have a look. Hello, Ms. Anuma. You have visited different countries, especially I would like to discuss the SARC, the problem of the women in the SARC. You have visited Pakistan as well as what's your experience at the workplaces, the problems faced being from the women's side?
All over SAARC countries, not only in Pakistan or Sri Lanka, what I see is women face problems at workplaces. Sometimes it's sexual harassment, but on the other hand, there's a glass ceiling everywhere for women. Because we hardly see any women in decision-making positions at workplaces.
Anuma Rajakaruna is a sociologist. She is working for women's rights and peace in her green country.